John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. I welcome Roger Stone, who has new book, The Clintons' War on Women, is extremely relevant to where we are right now. Mrs. Clinton's successful appearance before the Benghazi Committee, 11 hours, dealing with a variety of questions, and at this point the headlines indicate that the Democratic Party is most satisfied with her presentation of herself as Secretary of State. At the same time, Joe Biden, the vice president's decision, announced in the Rose Garden in a lengthy speech about how there's not time left, has stepped aside from challenging Mrs. Clinton. Governor Chafee of Rhode Island, who was in the first debate, has now suspended his campaign. Senator Webb, who was in the first debate of Virginia, has now stepped aside from running for the Democratic nomination, that leaving only Bernie Sanders, who's an exciting figure but nonetheless senior and not even quite a Democrat, and Governor O'Malley in the contest. Not even clear there'll be more debates. Roger, a very good evening to you. First, because we're dealing with the Clintons then and the Clintons now, about Mrs. Clinton's presentation yesterday, was there any surprising note there? Did we see something that had developed since she was First Lady or Senator many years ago? Good evening to you, Roger.
Great to be with you again, John. In all honesty, I didn't think she had a stellar performance. I think she got by. She had her moments, but she also got tagged a number of times. And I still think that there's a couple problems here with the narrative. The most important one, of course, is that either the attack on our mission in Benghazi was caused by an anti-Islamic video that showed one time in Turkey, or it was not. As I reveal in my book, The Clintons' War on Women, that this canard, this cover line, this cover story, I should say, was invented by Sidney Blumenthal, who is a hitman who reported directly to Hillary, but who Rahm Emanuel of the Obama White House refused to allow be hired at the State Department because of the dirty tricks that he used against Obama in 2000 or 2004, I guess. And then additionally, the fact that Hillary Clinton was told point blank by our intelligence services at the highest levels that was not true, but that she continued to tell that lie, having the temerity to look the parents of the 4 Americans killed in Benghazi in the eye and repeat the lie one more time. This isn't over. She'll be asked about that if the Republicans choose to nominate somebody with the gumption and the courage to ask her, which goes to the broader theme, which is her inability to tell the truth about anything, whether it is being under sniper fire in Bosnia, or whether it is about her email server, or about whether she did or did not have classified documents, or whether she was named after Sir Edmund Hillary, or whether her grandparents were immigrants. She lies about things big and small. She lies without batting an eye. This is something that she has in common with her husband, who Senator Bob Kerrey, a Democrat, said Bill Clinton was the smoothest liar and most congenital liar he had ever met.
Reaching back to the 20th century when we were younger men, Roger, and the world was much more possible. Bill Clinton was president for 8 years. We learned a deal about Bill Clinton's conduct and his willingness to cover up or tell a story that is not true, and Mrs. Clinton's assisting him as First Lady. I ask you to just summarize what we can expect with Mrs. Clinton in the White House, because there are listeners now, millennials and Gen Xers, who were not of voting age, not even particularly out of grade school, when the Clintons were last operating out of the White House. What can we expect?
Yeah, look, I'm not a defeatist, and I refuse to concede that she's going to be president yet. It isn't over till it's over, and politics is 12 rounds, just like life, and you're only in the first round. The whole reason I wrote this book is because so many young people, particularly women, have no frame of reference for the Clintons. They know very, very little. What they know is generally positive because it's recent, and they have tried to burnish their credentials. My book is much broader than the question of sex, but sex is in the forefront. It is not about consensual sex. It's not about Bill's affairs and his mistresses and his one-night stands. If I wrote such a book, it would run to 5 or 6 volumes and could be used as a doorstop. This is about rape. It is about non-consensual sex, sexual assault. Bill is a serial rapist, a serial sexual assaulter, very much like Bill Cosby. I interviewed 27 women for this book who have been assaulted by Bill. And Hillary's role is far more than an enabler. She then is the person who takes charge of the cover-up, meaning it is Hillary who hires the heavy-handed private detectives who then wage a veritable terror campaign to silence these women. So, sure, Hillary Clinton is an advocate for women and girls as long as you're not one of those women unlucky enough to have been sexually assaulted by her husband. Then you become a target. First, her gunzels, her goons like David Brock and James Carville demean these women. Sluts, bimbos, trash, whores, they're called. Who's going to believe them, Hillary says? They're nobody. And then, of course, Hillary goes out and hires the heavy-handed private detectives like Jack Palladino, like Anthony Pellicano, now in prison, like Ivan Duda, to track these women and threaten them, to terrorize them into silence, lest they get in the way of the Clintons' aspirations for more power and more wealth. I think women will find this appalling. I think women voters will find this appalling. And I have to tell you, John, a number of these women I interviewed are ready to go. They'll go on camera. They'll be in paid television ads. I could put 3 of them on a plane tomorrow to start dogging Hillary around the country. No, I refuse to concede she's going to be president. It's not over by a long shot.
Stepping back then from the presumption of January 2017, in the conduct of the campaign, do we expect to see Mr. Clinton as an advocate for Mrs. Clinton on the campaign? Because that would open them up to answering these questions.
Yeah, actually, I think this is a problem for them. High-level Democrats I know right there in New York City tell me that Bill is walled off from the campaign, as he is now walled off from the Clinton Foundation. He no longer has any legal authority there. Bill's not so steady on his feet. Witness him going on television and defending his actions at the Clinton Foundation, which, by the way, is not a charity, but a slush fund for grifters and a vehicle for massive bribes, where you could buy major decisions to the State Department in return for huge contributions. And he said, well, I have to do this. I need to pay my bills. John, he made $358 million last year. Hillary cashed in at $258. Chelsea, who is not a child but a co-conspirating adult, she made about $58 million. These people would steal a hot stove. And it is reminiscent of Bill saying, I didn't inhale. I smoked marijuana, but I didn't inhale. People kept telling me what a brilliant politician he is. Really? Which presidential election did he get 50+% in? That would be none. If there were independent candidacies by Ross Perot in 1992 and 96, he would never have been president at all.
We have about a minute, Roger. Your expectation then is Bill Clinton will not participate in the campaign and Mrs. Clinton will go forward without having to answer questions for Bill Clinton's past and present conduct. Is that a way of describing how they match it up?
He's an unguided missile. And frankly, they don't want him meddling in campaign. This is a very different strategy. Remember, the Clinton strategy was to bring back conservative Democrats in the South and the West,
the
moderate Democrats, and become more competitive. Hillary's going for a left-wing strategy. She just wants to maximize the number of liberals. Bill Clinton is an unguided missile. They don't want him on television unaided because you never know what he might blurt out. But because I think his female victims like Kathy Willey, Juanita Broderick, and many others are ready to speak out, ready to be interviewed on shows like this, ready to hop on a plane and follow Hillary, ready to be in paid television ads in New Hampshire and Iowa, I think this issue cannot be buried. I think it will be front and center.
The book is The Clintons' War on Women, Roger Stone with Robert Morrow. It is a review of the Clintons that we all remember from the late 20th century, and the prospect of 8 more years of that is daunting. I'm John Batchelor. This is The John Batchelor Show.